Every morning at a law firm looks about the same. An inbox full of client emails to answer, deadlines scattered across your matters, and no clear sense of what you need to prioritize first. All of that routine admin before you can even get started on any real legal work. So, in this video, I'll show you an AI legal assistant that has your morning admin ready in your inbox by 9 a.m., why it runs on an app called Hermes and not on Cloud Cowork, and how any lawyer can set it up with no tech skills required. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Jordi and I build AI employees for law firms. Now, before I show you how to set this up, let me show you what the finished morning brief looks like. So this is a normal Gmail inbox, and this email right here is the morning brief that Edward sent us. Now, Edward is an AI legal assistant that we are setting up today, and the one that you're seeing right now is from a run that I did before recording. I hired him for a small fake firm, handed over its matters, and filled his inbox with 14 emails. So right at the top we can see your morning summarized in 3 numbers. You have 2 deadlines waiting for you, 3 replies drafted, and there is 1 item that needs your input. Now, one thing to note is that this firm and all its clients are fake, created by AI, but all the workflows you'll see today are real. So first we have what needs your input today, saying that a counterparty came back overnight with a $30,000 settlement offer, and Edward wrote it up for Marisol, the managing partner. And as you can see, the write-up gives her a summary: who's making the offer, the exact amount, and what the firm's own records say about this dispute. But for this email, unlike the other 3, it decided not to draft a reply because he understood that this email relies too heavily on a lawyer's judgment. So it notes that it is waiting for Marisol's input. But now suppose that Marisol wants to see the full history of this dispute before she makes a decision. Well, she can just email Edward from her own address the way that she'd email any other colleague. So here's that thread where she asked, Edward, before I decide on the settlement, pull together our full history with Atlas Interiors, the engagement, what happened, and where the numbers stand. Now, she sent this at 10:52 and received a response at 10:54, so it took about 2 minutes for Edward to respond. And he responded with all relevant information on the dispute in 1 email, such as information about the current proposal, the engagement, the chronology of what happened, our position, the counterparty's position, the exact numbers of the dispute, and then finally here at the bottom it states the sources, and these sources are based on the files of the firm itself so that you know you can rely on this response. Now, back here in the morning brief, here we can see the 3 drafted replies for the 3 emails where Edward decided that they are just routine emails that didn't require a lawyer's specific input. And we can click here on open the draft in the Cedar Foods thread, and it will open up here the email thread with the counterparty's email here right on top, and here your firm's reply already drafted. Now, all of the information is based on your firm's files, so everything written here is factual. And Edward also has a guardrail, meaning that he can't just send off emails to clients on his own. You're still always the one clicking the send button. And say you want to change something about this draft, well, it's just a draft in your own inbox, so you can make any edit you want right here, or you can also ask Edward himself. Now, according to this Clio report, lawyers bill about 3 hours of an 8-hour day, and routine admin eats at a lot of those hours. Now, this brief that I just showed you is a key part of that admin already done when you walk in, and that's your morning admin prepared. 14 unread emails read, 2 deadlines listed, 3 replies sitting in their threads, and 1 item needing your decision. So let's set it up. Step 1, hiring Edward. So, step 1, hiring Edward. And setting him up is just 3 steps. First, you download his folder, which you can find in the description down below. Then you open in the desktop Hermes app, and I'll show you where to get that in just a second. And then all you need to do is just tell him hi, and he'll answer you by giving you a couple of questions for you to answer, one at a time. And from your answers, he will then create his own setup. Now, I know that you're probably wondering, why should we use an app called Hermes instead of Claude Cowork, which your firm may already be using? Well, the biggest difference is that Cowork is a tool that every lawyer in your firm needs to learn to use optimally to get the best results. But Edward, because he can live in your inbox, no one needs to learn any new tools, so just one person is responsible for building and improving Edward on a weekly basis for your firm. And that person can design Edward in a way where it guides your lawyers through using it effectively. Okay, so first, Hermes. Search for the Hermes desktop app download and then click this first link. Now this is the download page, so click on this button right here, and then here select either the macOS or the Windows download and then install it. Alright, so after installing, we can see this screen where Hermes asks us to connect it to an AI model, because Hermes can be used with any AI model. So we are going to be clicking on the OpenAI one, because the latest ChatGPT model is the best one right now as of time of recording to use with Hermes. So let's click here. Then it will just ask us to log into our ChatGPT or OpenAI accounts, and once we click the login, it will say that we need to enable a setting. So to do that, we can just click right here, and then it will automatically open up this setting for us, and then all we need to do is scroll down here to find it, enable device code authorization for codecs, and then here activate it. Now once it has been activated, we can just close this and then go back into the Hermes app. Then there will be a code here, and all we need to do to copy it is just click it, and then it will turn orange, as you can see. Then we have to click here on the reopen verification page, which will now be properly working because we enabled the setting. So let's log in once again with our code ready, click continue, and then paste our code here. And then click continue once again. So now it's signed in, and Hermes will be able to use the latest ChatGPT model. So as we can see right here back in the Hermes app, it says GPT 5.6 Sol, which as of the time of recording, this is the latest model. So let's click begin. And here we are in the Hermes app, and as you can see, it looks very familiar. It looks almost the same as Claude, and it works almost exactly the same as Claude. So you have your chat down here, and here on the left your new chat sessions will be stored, and to create a new chat, all you have to do is click here. Alright, so now that we have set up the model for Hermes, all we're going to need to do right now is to install Edward, our employee. So this is a zip file that you can find in the description of this video, so I will just unzip it. Then we have the folder right here, and what we need to do now is to go to this plus icon here in Hermes, which says add context, so let's click that. Then click on folder right here, and then I will select the Edward folder that we just unzipped and click on open, and then I will ask Hermes to set this folder as the folder in this profile in the sidebar. Okay, so what that did is that if we now click here on the top right icon, which says show right sidebar, we can now see the Edward employee folder that we just installed here right in the sidebar, so that we can see all of the files and folders that we are working with. Okay, so now it's time to hire Edward. The folder that we just installed includes files that give Edward instructions, and the moment that it opened those, Edward read all of them. So all I type here is just hi, and Edward will now guide us through the rest. Okay, so we can see that Edward is introducing himself here and then asking us the first setup question. What is the firm's name and what kind of law do you practice? Now, I am not a lawyer, so I have just prepared all of these answers for this demo so that I can copy paste them in, but you would of course answer these with your real answers. So here it asks an important question where it asks, what should always be flagged for that person instead of drafted. So you can set up the rules for the brief up here yourself. Alright, so Edward created some new files for us, so let me quickly show you around his employee folder, because everything Edward knows lives in here in this folder in plain files that you can open up at any time. And firstly, he created this firm folder that contains a few files based on your earlier answers to his questions. So for example, we have the escalation file that simply states which person emails should be escalated to. And then we have, for example, the firm profile that contains some basic firm info. And then we have here the matters and the positions folders. And these are the firm's own files that we'll be adding soon. And then we have the skills and the playbooks. These are your firm's processes written down in plain text files. And then we have the drafts folder, and these are just his working copies of the replies that he prepares for your inbox. And then finally, we have the ledger folder, and this maintains a record of everything that Edward does. Now, one thing before step 2, for when the time comes for you to set this up, the legal assistant employee folder is in the download below, and that includes the morning brief that he runs and the playbooks that he works from, and it's on the page linked in the description down below this video. And when you click it, you'll arrive on this page, and all you need to do is just type a 0 here and click the button I want this, and then it will ask you for your email and send it over to you. So if you want to follow along, download it now, and let's get right back into it. Alright, so step 2, giving him the firm's matters, and all we have to do here is to drag in two things. First, the client matter folders, and then secondly, the firm's positions file, the standard terms your firm already insists on, written down once. Now, the key dates and deadlines are already inside of those files, so they come along automatically, and Edward will read it all and keep a complete docket of your firm. And if your matters live in Clio or whatever system your firm runs, you'd export the documents from there first and drag them in the same way. But you can also ask Edward to set up a connection to Clio, and he will just guide you through that. Alright, so we're going to give Edward the matters. So we have this folder right here, which contains a matters folder. And as you can see, it contains 8 client matters. So for example, if we open this up, we can see that it contains a folder that is called documents, which has invoices and contracts, all sorts of matter documents that you would normally receive from clients. So all we're going to do here is to open up the Edward folder here, and the folder that you see right here is the exact same one that you see here in the right hand side sidebar in Hermes. And so we are going to drag in the matters folder, or at least the contents of the matters folder, grab that and drag it into this matters folder in the Edward folder. All right, so that has been done. And then secondly, here we have just a plain text file which contains our firm's voice and standard positions, which we are going to drag into the positions folder. Okay, so now that's been done, we're going to go back into Hermes, and we're going to say we have just imported the client matters and our standard positions. Please read those in and extract all the key deadlines, and then hit enter. Now, while Edward is installing these, I will just quickly show you what is in the firm voice and positions file that we just imported in the positions folder. So let's open it up, and it's just a small summary of who we are, how the firm writes, and then standard positions on categories like collections and installment plans, NDAs, etc., etc. Alright, so Edward has now extracted all of the deadlines, and now we are just going to ask it to store all of these deadlines in your memory. Alright, so it just stored all of the deadlines. Alright, so now on to step 3, connecting to your email inbox. And this is where we will be chatting and working with Edward. And all I need to do here is to connect your firm's own email inbox. And then that's the same one that your clients will already be writing to, and it takes one Gmail app password, which will be a one-time setup, and from then on the morning's mail will be able to be read by Edward, and his drafts will be able to reach you right in the same email threads that they came from. Alright, so to give Edward access to your Gmail now, we need to click here on messaging. Then it will open this up for us, and then we will need to click on email right here. And for the email address, this is just a random throwaway email of mine, but you should fill in your firm's email address here that you want Edward to be able to read. So this can be the email address that your firm receives client emails from, for example. And then here, allowed users, this is the list that is comma separated of email addresses that Edward is allowed to communicate with. So this is a safety guardrail, basically making sure that Edward can only talk and give private firm information to email addresses that are actually allowed to use it. So I'll use another address of mine that is another throwaway email account, but you should be able to just type all the emails in here that you want to give access to. So we will just do this, and then the only thing we still need is the email password, but we don't need to give it the actual email password here. We need to give it an app password, and we can get that by going to our email and then clicking here on the profile icon and then on manage your Google account. And then the first thing you need to do is to make sure that two-step verification is turned on, because if it is not turned on, you will not be able to create app passwords. Now, once you've configured that, you go to the search bar here and type in app password, and then click it right here, app passwords. And now we will create an app name, and we will type Hermes Edward for that and click create. And this is the app password that we will copy. Then we will click done, and now we will go back into Hermes and set that as the email password. Now, don't give this app password to anyone else, because they will be able to access your inbox. And after this video, I will also be regenerating this one or deleting it to make sure that nobody can access mine. And then we will hit save changes. All right, so that's succeeded. And now it says here, as you can see, restart needed. So just restart the Hermes app, and then Hermes will be connected with the Edward employee that will be connected to your Gmail. Just one quick thing, I made a mistake here. What restart needed actually means is that the gateway needs to be restarted. So to do that, you go to the bottom left right here and you click on gateway ready, and then you click on this icon to restart the gateway. All right, so step 4, running the first brief. So all that we do here is to ask Edward for it, and then Edward will go ahead and fetch all of the morning's emails all by himself, and then you'll watch him triage those all in the Hermes chat screen, and then they will arrive in your inbox. And keep in mind that this is only an on-demand version that will run when we ask Edward for it in the chat, but the weekday morning 9 a.m. scheduling will be the last step. All right, now back in the chat, all we have to do is type run the morning brief. Now we can see that Edward is going to work on all the emails that are unread, checking the matters and the deadlines, etc., etc. So he will be providing us with the brief shortly. And while he runs, here's what this actually is. It's a skill here under the skills folder called morning brief. And this is just your firm's morning process written down once, so it runs the same way every day, and it came in the folder that you downloaded, and you never have to open this file unless you want to change the process, and then you would edit things in here. And you would do that by clicking the edit button here in the top right, and then you can just change whatever you like about this process. So like this, and then hit save, for example. Okay, so Edward has just finished creating the morning brief, and that took about 8 minutes. Now let's check that out in our inbox, and here it is, the morning brief for this morning. And if we open that up, we see the morning brief that we saw also in the beginning of this video, a similar one with 2 deadlines waiting for us, 3 replies drafted and ready to go, and 1 item needing a lawyer's input. So this is the item that needs our input. Here are the drafted replies that we can open up by clicking on these links here. Here are the deadlines. And here's what's being watched but doesn't need your immediate attention. Now note that all of this was generated from 21 unread emails across 6 active Matter threads plus routine, firm and system mail. So that means that if we go back to our Hermes app, the files that we have here in our Matters, that all of the information that is pulled for the morning brief is coming from your actual firm data. All right, so step 5, working on the drafts, and we're going to open one draft in its own thread and check its sources back in the brief. Then we'll ask Edward for a change right from that thread, because we can talk to Edward from email, as you'll be seeing soon. And when that draft is correct, you're the one to press send from your own inbox, because Edward will never send anything to a client. He can't, because he has guardrails that we just set up. So everything happens inside of your inbox. Okay, now let's take, for example, the Cedar Foods thread, which we can open up by clicking this link right here. So on top we have the email of the counterparty, and below is the drafted reply. And we can see here that Edward said that their proposed 6-month schedule is outside of the terms that our firm has been authorized to consider, and that our client will consider a written schedule of up to 4 monthly installments. Now let's check back into Hermes where this information is coming from, because if we open up this positions folder with this firm voice and positions file that, if you remember, we imported earlier into Edward, then if we open it up, and this is that file right here, if we scroll down, we can see that our positions on collections and installment plans indeed states that our default is a written schedule of up to 4 monthly installments. So this is again based on your firm's own data, and in this case, positions. Now, in this draft, suppose that Marisol wants a tighter schedule. Let's say that she wants 3 monthly installments instead of 4. So all she has to do is open up a new email in her own inbox. And remember that we created Edward in this email address. So we are now sending from a different email address so that Edward will receive it. And we'll say in the subject, Cedar Food Drafts. And then we'll ask Edward, please make it 3 installments instead of 4. And that's it. And then we'll just hit send. And now if we navigate once more to the Cedar Foods thread, we will open it right here. And we can see that Edward has made this change, and now it states 3 monthly installments instead of 4. And notice here that nothing was sent out, because a change request doesn't send anything, it just updates the draft. And for a one-word tweak, you don't even need to talk to Edward, because you can just make your changes here as you would normally and then hit send yourself. Alright, so the last step, step 6, setting up the 9 a.m. schedule. And all we have to do here is to set up one weekday morning job, and the computer that runs Hermes will stay turned on, and from then on the brief is waiting before you sit down in the morning. And after this step, nobody has to remember to ask for the brief, because it will just arrive on its own. And setting that up is just typing one sentence to Edward. Right, so I will just ask Edward in our chat, schedule the 9 a.m. morning brief to run every weekday morning at 8:30 a.m. so that it's always ready by 9 a.m. in the firm's inbox. And then hit enter. And that's all there was to it, because now, as you can see here, the morning brief is scheduled for 8:30 every weekday morning. It will be emailed to the firm's inbox before 9. The machine must be on with the app running. If it was asleep, open the app and ask me to run the morning brief. And that is true, you need to keep your machine running, but you can also use a computer in the cloud, but that is for another video. All right, now before we wrap up, I just want to tell you about 4 honest limits that Edward has right now. One is the office hours, meaning that we've set a schedule step and Edward is off when the machine is closed. So the email that comes in at 9 p.m. Friday waits until someone opens him on Monday. Now, 2 is a borrowed identity. He answers from your mailbox. He has no address of his own. 3, nobody is watching. So if the 8:30 a.m. run fails one morning, nobody gets an alert. And once your firm starts to rely on this brief and other AI employee features, a silent failure on the wrong morning is quite costly for your firm. And 4, nobody's maintaining and improving Edward. So your positions change, the AI behind Edward changes, and after the day you hire him, nobody is keeping him up to date. So the managed Edward doesn't live with those limits. He runs on his own cloud computer with his own inbox, watched around the clock and kept up to date as the firm changes. And building that is what I do. On a call with me, you'll watch an employee like this run on your firm's own work, and yours is live within just 48 hours of the kickoff, and the link for that is down in the description. But the free folder is exactly what you watched today, and it's the right place to start. All right, so that's the AI legal assistant that any lawyer can use. Your firm's morning ready in your inbox by 9, every routine reply drafted from the firm's own files, waiting for a lawyer to send it, and an employee who learned your firm once and doesn't forget it, and a brief that arrives on its own before you sit down in the morning. And that's how the same team size can take on more matters without another hire. And on cost, Hermes itself is free and the ChatGPT plan behind it is your whole monthly cost. And you don't need a firm-wide rollout to find out what this is worth to you. Just one lawyer, one plan, and one practice matter is enough to see if you want this for your firm. And the folder from this video, the employee folder, you can download completely for free. Now, if you get stuck anywhere or there's a workflow that your firm wants to see automated next, leave a comment and I'll respond to every one of them. And if this was useful, a like would genuinely help me out. So thanks for watching. And if you want to see what a whole team of agents look like on one matter, 155 agents to be precise, then check out this video right here.